So, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment was obviously announced a few weeks ago, and this week's video we're kind of doing the last roundup of the Switch 2 Zelda announcements that we got. And I just want to talk about my feelings about the game, about my feelings about what that means for the future of Zelda, and we'll react to the trailer, talk about maybe what the game will bring, what context we'll get, and what it might look like. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Welcome back to the Zelda Realm YouTube channel. My name is Joe, and as always it's great to have you with me. Thanks so much for all the comments in last week's video. Here are my two favourite ones, and if you want to feature in next week's video, just comment down below in this video and I'll pick the two best and put them up on screen. As always guys, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload. At 1,000 subscribers I will be releasing a Tears of the Kingdom retrospective. Work is now underway on that project, so please let's make sure it's not wasted work. Subscribe to the channel for the 1,000 subs. Alright, we're just going to get straight into it. We're going to react to the trailer first, and then I just want to talk about my thoughts, reflect on the trailer, and also the fact that this is the second Zelda release in a row where we won't be playing as Link. Right, let's jump straight into it. So just before this came on, whenever they said, oh, Nintendo in collaboration with, and as soon as we saw the first logo that comes up here, I knew straight away what it was, and to be perfectly honest, I felt quite a high amount of disappointment about what was coming up. So let's just start this. As soon as I saw this, I was like, yeah, I know exactly what this is.
When the Zonai, who descended from the heavens, joined hands with the Hylians, who dwelled on the surface, their union led to a great and prosperous kingdom. But in time, a terrible evil arose. A war was fought to vanquish this evil.
So immediate reflection is, when I first saw that, I thought, okay, we're in for an interesting look back at what happened, because one of the massive differences between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are kind of the time spans over which the games occur. So Breath of the Wild, 100 years from, let's say, when Age of Calamity is set to the main game. We're going to be in a situation here where Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is going to be set, is it 10,000 years before? So it's going to be really interesting to see how they structure the world. That's the one thing I have a question about, is how they structure the world.
One which future generations would call the Imprisoning War.
Perhaps you truly have traveled back in time.
And if this is gameplay, this is interesting in terms of how they're going to maybe pace out. Is it going to be more story focused? I don't know, we'll see.
So that's...
And then that's Hyrule Castle. So for elements like this, I think this game will be pretty cool, because it will be an imagining of what that Hyrule looked like that we never got to see. So I think that's a good thing.
Hyrule Castle? Then that must mean this really is the past.
And obviously then we've got new characters, so we're fighting with Raru, I imagine Sonia. So, I think it's just the release date, yeah. So, we know it's coming this year. I will definitely be playing this game because I need to, for the channel. I need to see what it's all about. We need to analyse the story. But now let's get into my thoughts as to how I feel about this and what it means for the future of Zelda. I'm going to do my best to be equal. I'm going to try my best to be positive and critical across many different things, because I don't want this to come across as a moan session or a nitpicky negative review of what is to come for Zelda. But I think the thing I find most interesting about the direction in which Zelda is going down is that Nintendo have very clearly laid the stamp down that the big games are going to be voice acted, and we hadn't seen that before Breath of the Wild. And what I find hilarious about this whole voice acting thing is we have had 2 mainline Zelda games that have been voice acted out of them all, and out of the 3 Hyrule Warriors games, we have 2 that are voice acted that follow like a really deep story that we wouldn't especially see in Zelda. And don't get me wrong, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of the cutscenes. I thought the way they realised Master Koga was very cool. I thought seeing Impa younger was very, very cool. And I quite liked the way they provided context to a lot of the points of Breath of the Wild that we had to kind of gather ourselves from the game. So to me, that's what gives Hyrule Warriors a big tick, is the added context. I think that's fantastic and something we should look forward to as Zelda fans. Age of Imprisonment, I don't think will be any different. In fact, if anything, I think Age of Imprisonment will be even more interesting as we play through and get more context about what happened in that Imprisoning War section of Tears of the Kingdom. More Ganondorf, I think, will be very interesting. I imagine that the final fight will be that fight where we kind of imprison Ganondorf, and then that leads into Link and Zelda finding him all those years later. So I think that's going to be very cool, and for us Zelda nerds, fans, that's something to be relatively excited about. However, I absolutely urge caution on this, because we knew from Age of Calamity that that story ended up not being canon, and I imagine there might be a similar thing here with Age of Imprisonment. The one thing I worry about in terms of those who are really into the lore is the timeline separation and all that stuff, because if this is going to lead into Tears of the Kingdom and it's set 10,000 years before, what does that mean for the Zelda timeline? Because how far in the future are we then going to have to say that the events of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom took place in order for this game to make sense in the context of the timeline? So I urge caution about the hype for the story, because I worry that we are going to tie ourselves into knots when it comes to the story and the timeline. In terms of gameplay, I found Hyrule Warriors is very repetitive in its nature. Of course, it's kind of the same thing over and over again. Take out loads of enemies, kill the elite enemies, kill the boss, and everyone naturally, I think, has their favourite character. So for me, Age of Calamity, my 2 favourites were Link and Impa, and Urbosa was pretty good too. I had no time for Zelda in it. I had no time for Rivali, really, and I didn't have any time for the other 2 champions either. I don't know, it just didn't click with me. You find the character that works for you, you get used to it, some of them are really OP, and then you're like, right, this is what I'm going to run with for the rest of the game. The interesting thing about this game is that there's no Link. So that's the first thing I want to talk about immediately, is this game will not feature Link, and if it does, then it A, doesn't make sense, and B, therefore cannot be canon, because obviously Link never features in the past in Tears of the Kingdom. So it's likely that what we will find ourselves doing is playing as Zelda, Rauru, and the sages as they battle their way through different parts of Hyrule. I'm excited to see what Hyrule looked like in the ancient times. So when we go back 10,000 years, what do all the different areas look like? You know, is there a Rito village? Do we have the Gerudo Valley? All these things. Is Ganondorf and his actions in Tears of the Kingdom the reason that the Gerudo do not want any males in their city? I think that would be an interesting thing to explore. These are all the things that I think we can get answers to, and I do think, of course, it's pretty cool that we get to go back 10,000 years to ancient Hyrule, and that's very different from Age of Calamity, where The thing I found very reassuring and cool about Age of Calamity was the respect for the source material, the way they used the map, the way that Hyrule didn't really change much in the 100 years. It was just that some of the areas that were ruins in Breath of the Wild were obviously garrisons and forts in Age of Calamity. So overall, it's an interesting decision. I've seen a few videos where it says, it was so obvious that it wasn't. I did not, for the life of me, think we would get another Hyrule Warriors game based on Tears of the Kingdom. It never even came into my headspace. But what does it mean for the future of Zelda? Because I think it's really interesting. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, let's not forget, also came with expansion packs. And I'd be interested to see if they apply the same strategy for this game. It's an interesting one. I think people want to see a new Zelda thing every year, or at least every year and a half, just to kind of keep us ticking over in between the main titles. Is this better than another remaster? I'm going to say yes. However, my worry is with this coming out in winter 2025 that we will not see any kind of news about a new Zelda game until 2026 at the earliest, which means that it's unlikely that we will get any new Zelda game until late 2026. Or, what worries me even more, is that they wait until early 2027 to be in line with the Zelda movie. It would be smart, but it means we're waiting just a bit longer. So, they are my thoughts on Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, coming this winter 2025 to Switch 2. I don't know if they've said if it's exclusive. I imagine that a lot of these games they're not going to do the PS4, PS5 strategy, where a lot of games released on PS5, but also on PS4. I have the feeling that Nintendo were very keen to distance the Switch and to just go straight to the Switch 2. No cross-gen. We've seen that with already Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza. All the games currently are structured to only come out on Switch 2. So this might be a Switch 2 exclusive. But let me know in the comments, guys, what are your thoughts about Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment? Is it a game that you're looking forward to? Were you disappointed like me when you saw the announcement? Let me know, guys. And I will be back next week to continue finally A Hero's Purpose, but there's just been too much to cover. I haven't had a chance. So next Sunday, I'll be back with A Hero's Purpose. But for now, guys, have a great week. I've been the Zelda Realm, and I'll see you soon.